We're live. Hi. I had to run get something really quick. How are you guys? It's time. I'm here. So, what a way to wrap up what's been a really powerful teaching and learning week for me. I don't know about you, but there's been some pretty interesting energy in the field, and it has been a good teacher, hasn't it? I've got my books, I've got my notes. I want to show you what I have. So here's the thing I want to tell you about tonight, okay? It's really good to see you. I'm going to be walking you through tonight. This is one of the first times I'm doing this, okay? And what I want to say is tonight really is me showing you my process. My physical process and my intellectual process and my emotional process for my own karmic release work that I'm doing, okay? So what I want you to think about is, because you're kind of going to witness it in a way, you're going to see, hopefully, what this work means to me, how I'm approaching it. I think I have kind of a hybrid Hindu shamanic perspective on karma that might be interesting for you. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about how I think about karma. This is not in any way the free version that I gave to people who purchased the kit. This is the heavy-duty Magical Sabbatical Illumina practitioner. Okay, I would not talk about a lot of the things that we're going to talk about tonight with an audience who's new to this work. I'm speaking to you about this tonight because you're ready, because you're advanced. And so I might take you all over the place tonight, but what I'm trying to do is show you what I'm doing. And then what I would like for you to do is think about keeping what works for you. So if there's stuff that I show you tonight that's inspiring to you or interesting to you, keep it, work with it, do it. If there's stuff that doesn't resonate with you, toss it. It's my my altar tonight looks like a little bit of a mess. Okay, I have a mala, I have chipstones, I have oils, I have tumbled stones that I'm working with. I mean, a dozen different tumbled stones. I have my sari ribbon. I have my fabric for my medicine bundle. I have herbs. I have a juniper bundle because juniper is the big medicine of karmic release. I have sweetgrass. I have herkimer because herkimer medicine is important. I have damberite because damberite medicine is important. So I'm just going to, Ashley says she's holding on to sapphire to retain the knowledge. So kind of what you're doing tonight is witnessing maybe a little bit of my own personal practice in hopes that seeing what I'm doing will inspire you. And Norma did the ritual from the kit, she said, and it knocked her off her ass and helped her make changes with it, which I think is really powerful. One of the things that karmic work does is it facilitates really deep humility, okay? The further I walk down this path, and the more of this work that I do, the more humble I would say I become. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about why that is. I am humbled by, really in the face of work like this, how much I realize we don't know. We are working with the great mystery, okay? I don't think you should be nervous at all, but I will tell you that it is an emotional process, it's a physical process, it's a spiritual process. And the main message for tonight is, karma truly, in the energetic sense, isn't the way you think about it, probably. The word karma in Sanskrit just means action or deed. It's something that you do. So tonight I'm going to teach you about what an imprint means. Every word that you say, every word that you write, whether it is a written word in a letter to someone, a Facebook post or a message or a comment that you post, wherever you post your words or share your words, you are responsible for those words. And you are responsible for the accuracy of those words. You are responsible for the pain that those words cause. You are responsible for the beauty that those words create. You are responsible for the love that those words communicate. But what I need you to know tonight, because this is big work that we're doing right now, but honestly, this is the final frontier, okay? Once you realize that you are ultimately responsible for every word and every action, and that your life in many ways, okay, is the universe's response to what you do and what you say, then what you realize is you don't have to, like, I don't walk around really angry at people or holding on to stuff, because it's not my work to do. Everyone is responsible for their own individual actions and imprinting. I don't have to, I don't have to worry about doling out consequences. That's not my role. And so in many ways, what it does is it frees you to be an observer. Do you know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it's really hard, because when you see someone who is imprinting negatively, especially by choice, you know what's happening, and it's hard to watch sometimes. Like, you almost want to save them. You want to, I have that reaction as a teacher. Sometimes I'll see people post things or talk about things or talk about other people, especially when they don't have a handle on their facts. And as I'm reading stuff like that, especially in this age of social media, I cringe. It's just sort of like, but then I have to release that. I can't work through those people's karma for them. They're going to have to work through that themselves. Now, what I mean by karma is their actions, because their actions have consequences. It's sort of like the law of motion, right, in Newtonian physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so you can't ever put anything out into the universe without understanding that there will be an equal and opposite reaction. The only question is when. And again, like I said, if you care about people, it's really, really hard to watch that process unfold. And yet, it is the grand teacher, right? It is sort of like, you can't interrupt that process either, because this is the learning. This is really, what we're talking about tonight is where the rubber hits the road, okay? And, a lot of times people will say one thing and do another, or they'll practice one thing, but they'll preach another. And so those disconnects are where we start to see some of where things fall apart, right? But again, the message of tonight is you're only responsible for you. You're only responsible for you. And some of the biggest medicine for me in my life, especially around watching other people work through their processes, I have this beautiful, like, sort of front row seat to what people are doing. And social media, I think, affords us that opportunity to watch, to be a watcher. So I watch what people do. I watch what happens. I watch the consequences, and I learn. I think a lot of us do. We observe and we learn. We observe and we learn. And everyone's a teacher. Like, we see people who do things in a way that bring, all that positive energy back to them, and we learn that, and we want to replicate that. We see people who, create massive chaos for themselves, and we want to avoid that. So you learn by watching, because every single person in your life is a teacher. So I have a few sort of main ideas that I want to share with you tonight. Before I launch into that at all, I'm going to smudge. Perhaps there hasn't been a more important time to smudge than right now, since we're talking about releasing what could be thousands of years old tonight. Are you ready? And with the little mini version of this that I did, it was sort of like the PG-13. I'm not doing so much PG-13 tonight. That's not what Magical Sabbatical is about. We're going to talk about the deeper, heavier work tonight that has to be done. And now is the time, and you're being called to it. And there's no right, there's no wrong. That's the beautiful part of what we're doing tonight. There's really no right and no wrong. You're venturing into a territory where I can only guide you so much. You're going to have to rely on your instincts and your intuition. You're going to have to rely on the messages of your guides. At a certain point, there is no teacher who can take you all the way to the edge of that veil. But it is heavy work to be done. Colin, who is Priestess 37, says it quite beautifully there. There is heavy work to be done. And so it is, and we do that work. And we do that work with grace because, and by the way, not everybody is called to do the work with grace. Sometimes it's a lot harder to have to do the work with grace. Wouldn't it be easier if you could just scream and yell and do whatever you wanted and not think about consequences? Wouldn't that perhaps be easier? And yet, that's not the road that we're on. We're on a different road, held to a higher standard, bathed in a different light. Aho. I feel blessed to be with you guys too. And so this is what we do. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you for a while. I'm gonna talk to you for a while, and then we're going to put our hands in the dirt together. I'm gonna take all my jewelry off because I'm gonna be blending. It's gonna be sticky and tricky tonight, so I'm taking all my jewelry off. Naki says her kit just came, so she's ready. You know, this is hard work, and yet it is the work. Sometimes you look and you say, God, it's really hard to do this work, and then you think how blessed we are to actually be able to do it. I wouldn't trade it for a minute. I wouldn't trade any of the beautiful, difficult, sad, exciting, thrilling, terrible, scary, comforting moments of any of this work. I wouldn't miss a minute of it. And so I show up fully to it, and I see you, and you show up fully to it as well. It's so good. So I'm not going to talk to you about what tools I'm working with yet. I want to teach you first, so I want you to pay attention. Then we'll talk about things, but I want to talk about ideas before we talk about things. Tonight's more of an idea session than it is about a thing session, because at the end of the day, guess what? You're going to consciously and intuitively choose what you're going to put into your bundle if you make one. I'm going to talk to you about lots of other ways to do karmic release, by the way. For some rituals, you can take a bay leaf, you know what I mean? And you can write your releasing word on a bay leaf and cast it. You can burn it. You can bury it. You can send it out to the ocean or to a river. You can cast it on the winds if there's wind blowing where you are. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So like I said in the group, there's a spectrum all the way from no tools, you just karmically, energetically release, all the way to bundling, which is what I'm doing tonight, because in a way what this bundle is a despacho. If you go to the Andes, if you go to Peru, if you go to the Amazon, to some of the indigenous communities, they do a lot of work with what they call despacho, which is an offering. And so what I'm offering to our planet, and I'm actually going to be using an object link of blood in my bundle. Again, you don't have to do what I'm doing tonight, but I'm just sharing with you what I am doing. I'm not going to offer my blood to the bundle yet, but I will tell you that I will be adding my blood to the bundle before I bury it. So I just don't want to cut myself if that's a trigger for anyone, but I'm just going to be taking a drop of blood from my left forefinger, which is the power finger of the power hand. And so the offering of my blood has an important part of the ritual, for me anyway, because blood is a constant theme through my maternal line. There are a lot of blood diseases, bone marrow diseases, bloodletting, bleeding out. That goes through my maternal line. I have had Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis diseases where there's internal bleeding and so on. And that I have to work blood into the medicine in order for me to release. I'm not necessarily doing, yeah, I know. So I'm just saying tonight's kind of no joke, but I sort of thought maybe you're ready for that. Maybe you're ready to see some of the deeper magic it worked. Again, you do not have to add blood to a bundle unless there is blood in the releasing, and there is for me, because some of what I'm releasing is the maternal line. Okay, and so I have to do that for my particular medicine. Okay, I hope. Thank you for being here and for showing up to this work in a really powerful way. Okay. So, as I said, I'm an etymologist, right? Like I'm a wordsmith. And so I really like to bring us back to the roots, the ancient roots of our words, because I think a lot of times, is that for high blood pressure, Sky? Is that what you're asking, if blood would be appropriate for that? It can be. You know, blood can be important for circulatory issues, for anything around blood pressure. It can be important for cardiac issues because, of course, what else does the heart do? It can be important for, but it depends on whether blood has come up over and over again in your line. Like I said, in my line, it has. People dying in childbirth, people bleeding out. And so in order to stop that medicine, I have to work that into the energy of the bundle. And by the way, what we're doing tonight is both for the paternal and the maternal. I really only have serious karma to release down the maternal line, but if you have karma down the paternal line, that could also be blood. It just depends. And so in a way, yeah, so Colin has a family history of leukemia, so there's another place where you might, blood in the bundle might make sense. And so it's an interesting concept, actually. So for me, when I add blood to medicine as an object link, I do index finger of the left hand, okay? But again, you might Yeah, so for bone diseases, especially diseases of the marrow, my mom had cancer of the bone marrow very young in her life, in addition to other blood disorders. So it just is like it's on repeat in my family. Everybody shows up with a blood-borne disease or a disease where they lose excessive amounts of blood and it threatens the life force. Yeah, and so Nicole says, using grounding incense for release of anxiety, is that okay? So use your intuition. I only add something of the life force to a bundle when I'm being called to do it. It's very rare that I feel called to do it, okay? For the pituitary, I'm not as sure, actually. And so you might inquire with your guides for pituitary work, do they need blood to work with? Now, in my bundle, it's literally going to be a drop. It's not going to be, I literally will prick my finger, offer a drop, and let it seal up. So I'm not, in cases where you do add blood, it's not about the quantity. It's about the offering and having the energy of the blood, the life force in the offering itself. Does that help? So Naki's asking about autoimmune. So it depends, right? So the autoimmune diseases in my family have a lot of bloodletting associated with them. Yours may not. So I have MS, right? That for me, I would not put blood in the bundle if I was just releasing neurological issues. I would not. So if that's all I was working with was that medicine, I probably would not do that. Does that make sense? And so, mental illness and issues around the mental, sometimes that's more of an air element offering. And so in cases of mental illness where you're trying to create freedom from the confining structures, you might want to offer a feather, you know what I mean? Or something that aligns to the element of air, which I think would be a more powerful object link association than a blood offering. For sexual abuse, it's interesting, right? So I think, and sometimes too, you can substitute, depending on how you feel about all of this, you can substitute. So some people, instead of a blood drop, will use saliva as a way of offering a connection to the life force that isn't their primary life force, or a piece of the hair. And so your breath is also, absolutely, Kim Harrison says, your breath can be very powerful too. So something that represents the life force in you would be very, very powerful. Yeah, so it just depends on what's in the line. So Rachel's saying, what about down the line from my maternal grandfather? It depends on what is in the line. It depends on what is in the line. Like I said, I've been told to add the blood offering, and so that's the reason I'm doing it. But like I said, it literally has to be a drop for me. It doesn't have to be much. I literally will prick with a pin, and that will be the extent of it for me. So let me walk through my notes with you, because I think this is really important. So, like I said, karma in Sanskrit. What I really want you to do tonight, are you ready? I want you to put brackets or parentheses around everything you think you know about karma. Because people throw that word around, have you noticed, in memes and in, conversations, and even in people have whole Facebook groups around karma. And I think it's almost like telephone game, where we go from understanding what karma means in the spiritual sense and true to the actual root of the Sanskrit word, which is action, word, or deed. And we evolve that. We sort of take that meaning out of the original context, and we play telephone game to the point where we think karma is you getting what you deserve. Okay, so your karma is all your bad stuff that coming back to you, right? Can it be that? It can. But karma is really about understanding that everything you do has a consequence. And like I said, it can be a beautiful consequence or not. And you are responsible not just for the words, actions, thoughts, and imprints, but you're responsible for how those are received. And here's how it gets even more complicated. You're not only responsible for how it gets received, you're responsible for the impact of that reception on everyone who receives it. And so, and I want to second what Rosemary is saying too. We should not assume that we understand anybody else's karma. The minute you say, oh, that's your karma, or that's her karma, or that's his karma, you're in dangerous territory. I want to tell you. That I know for sure from having done a lot of work and a lot of journey work. The minute you say that you know somebody else's relationship with God or their creator, or the minute you pretend to understand what someone else's karma is, I think you are in a danger zone. I would highly discourage it. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will say from my perspective, when I see stuff like that, I literally look up and just want to put distance between myself and whatever that is, because you don't want to be in that place. I think that's some of the heaviest debt that we can accrue, is when we think that we know, and thus we can judge someone else's karma or their relationship to their own energy patterns, right? We don't know. And Carol, I mean, here's the other piece of it, right? Interesting, Deb, about leukemia and abortion and blood loss, right? So here's the other piece of it. I don't even know my karma. Do you know yours? I mean, let's just be really real for a minute. I don't know what my karma is. In doing a ritual like I'm doing tonight, this is my best guess based on patterns coming up in my life and what I feel I'm discerning from my guides, okay? It's my best guess. I don't know. And so we're going to talk tonight about accounting and the Ho'oponopono prayer from the Hawaiian tradition, because Ho'oponopono prayer, I should say, because that is, in my opinion, the most clean way, the cleanest way for you to interact with other people around karma, is the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is very simple. Let me read it to you. Are you ready? This is from the Hawaiian tradition. The prayer has 4 affirmations, 4 statements in it, that prayer. So the prayer is this: I'm sorry. It starts with I'm sorry. And this is where I want to begin with us tonight, okay? Anytime you are in relation with anyone, there comes a time when you should account for things you did consciously and subconsciously to that person in the form of the accounting for your part of the responsibility. And you may not know what your responsibility is. And so the Ho'oponopono prayer allows you to remain clean in your relationship with people, okay? So imagine that you had a disagreement with someone, or an argument with someone, or someone said, you hurt me, or you did this, or you, okay? You may not see what you did. You may not, it may not even be true what you're seeing. And yet, my belief is there's value in accounting for it, okay? And so what the Ho'oponopono prayer does is it allows you to create clean relationship with people, truly. And I want to talk to you about the fact that some people will say, well, why would you ask forgiveness from someone that you don't think you did anything wrong to? The reality is you don't know if you have done anything wrong. Again, how do you know? It may have been subconscious. You may have consciously not intended to hurt someone. But what if subconsciously you hurt them? Do you know? I mean, again, and I'm going to take it a step further. What if the karma between you and someone else isn't from this lifetime? What if it's from 100 years ago? What if it's from 1,000 years ago? What if it's from 10,000 years ago? Are you really going to say I didn't do anything? I have no responsibility here? In my opinion, that's unclean. Okay? So you're going to hear me make some judgments tonight, okay? And again, I want you to kind of just recognize this is based on my own experience, my own learning, my own process. What I have learned is there is value in saying I'm sorry to everyone in your life. Okay? Because you may not be sorry for something consciously, although you may be. I mean, I'm sorry for plenty of things conscious that I have done. I mean, I'm human, so are you. But I'm also sorry for the things that I have done subconsciously that may have impacted someone, and I need to also account for that. Now, you can't expect people in your life to do this. Many people are going to say, they're going to blame their problems on everybody else. She's the reason I have all these problems. He's the reason I have all these problems. My partner's the reason I have all these problems. This person is bad. That person is terrible. You see all those judgments all the time. And of course, what that does when you externalize everything is it prevents you from seeing your own responsibility. What I love about the Ho'oponopono prayer, okay, is you're taking responsibility. You're not saying, I have nothing to do here. It's all on you. What you're saying is there is always a mutuality, and I may not be conscious, okay? So let me say I'm sorry. I actually fell asleep saying this prayer last night because I had a particular experience last evening that caused me to reflect upon this prayer. And this is what I say when I am feeling like I need to account and I need to create a different energetic experience. And what this means sometimes is that you have to be the bigger person. The bigger person is the one who says, I'm sorry. The bigger person is the one who says, I'm sorry, first. Okay? And you don't have to say it in person, and you don't have to say it in writing, because the energetic apology trumps any apology, because that's between you and source. At the end of the day, the person you're in relationship with is not as important as your creator. And your creator seeing you on your knees saying, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. This is the prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Even if the other person is so mired and so in their own darkness that they can't receive, because again, what happens when you say I'm sorry? If the other person is not in a place of light or healing, it will make them more angry, because what they're realizing is they're not able to step up fully to that same level of consciousness, right? So you can't do this with the intention of expecting apology in return. Ever, ever, ever. If you go into apology with the expectation that you're going to get it back, I would say 75% of the time you're going to be really hurt and disappointed. When I go into apology, I go into apology clean, which is, I don't need you to say anything to me. And when I'm telling you that I've done this, and I've done it in cases where, in my life, where people have been horrible, okay? Unkind, unfair, ruthless, terrible, okay? I'm clean. And what I want you to start to privilege is your cleanliness in relationship. It doesn't matter if the other person is clean. What matters is that you are clean. And that's where you'll find peace. Your energy will be lighter. Your body will heal. You're not responsible for anybody else's cleanliness in relationship. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now, I've had plenty of experiences in my life where I have offered these words to people and had them say, oh my God, for me to come forward first and to be the one to account, create space for them to say, oh my God, and I'm sorry, and please forgive me, and thank you, and I love you. I've also had situations where I've been the first to say it, and people have said nothing, okay? I'm talking energetically too, and I've been in places where I've been the first to say it, and people have said, I refuse to hear you. Okay, and I'm talking about family even. I'm not even talking about friends or strangers. I'm talking sometimes about family members, right? How people react to your apology is not your business. Your business is that you did it, and your business is that you're clean, okay? But it has to come from your heart. So the apology, when you apologize to someone, you're not disempowering yourself. You're actually empowering yourself to reorient yourself to the accounting in your relationships so that you, like I said, show up clean, you show up right, and you show up accurately. And the rest is up to the universe. Here's what I've seen. Are you ready? And Angela, I want to come back to your comment, okay? Because I have thoughts on this. Here's what I've seen. If people really can't, if an apology is sincere, energetic or material, if it's sincere, if it is unreceived, that then becomes karmic debt on the part of the other person. And that is where your obligation ends. If they then can't open their heart to receive and to find and to locate, because you are one, right? Everyone you're in relationship with is you. And yes, that means someone who abused you. I know this is really hard, okay? I am not saying this is easy. And I'm also not saying that you should ever put yourself in a situation where you are unsafe. But if you are an adult and you are trying to let go of abuse that happened to you when you were not an adult, you can engage in this accounting and come clean in that relationship. And even if you are not at fault, okay, this is where it gets really tricky. Even if you are not at fault, You're not, by apologizing, you are not expressing weakness. By apologizing, you are simply taking responsibility for whatever energy is in the space that is yours. And you are saying, for whatever I may have brought that may have hurt the other person in any way, consciously, subconsciously, this lifetime, many lifetimes ago, I have seen plenty of cases where people were abusers in past lives and then end up abused in this lifetime, and they can't figure out what their accountability is. I'm not saying that's the case for you, but I do want you to really think about the universe of possibility. So, I have had cases where I have been in a relationship with people, and, I can tell that we had something unclean from a past life. Whether it was me doing something to them or them doing something to me, it's unclean. And so the Ho'oponopono prayer may seem awkward in this lifetime, okay? But for previous lifetimes, if you think of the totality of the possibility of how you might have engaged with people in other lifetimes that you're not even consciously, presently aware of, I want to invite you to think about doing this. Not telling you what to do, but I just want to invite you to think about doing this for a moment. Does that make sense? And if the person is gone, if the person is dead, you know what everyone has told me, all of my clients who've done this work with deceased parents, with deceased aunts and uncles, what everyone has told me in those cases is, at the end of the day, they found it somewhat easier. It's very difficult to have this conversation energetically with someone who's still alive, who resists in seeing their own part. It's very, very difficult. So, and again, your goal isn't for them to see their part. Your goal is only for you to be clean. Does that make sense? Let me say that one more time. Your goal is not for them to see their part. Who cares? Honestly, do you really care? It's your ego that wants to see them say they're wrong. Have you noticed that? It's your ego that wants to hear them say they were wrong. It's your ego, I'm sorry, but it's true. It's your ego that wants to hear them say they're sorry. It's your ego that wants to hear them say all those things. If you let go of all of that and you try coming to this work as a spirit being, then all you're going to care about is whether you are clean. Because it's about your soul and not theirs. And that's where you develop the humility to be able to say, I don't know if I'm conscious of what I've done to you. I may be, I may not be, but I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's where you can get to that place where that doesn't feel like weakness. That actually feels like strength. Because the fucking strongest thing you can do is to, when someone is as gross to you as they can be, the strongest thing you can do is say, I'm sorry. And I love you. And thank you. And please forgive me. That's the strongest thing you can do. The weak thing to do is to be a jerk. The weak thing to do is activate your ego and go, them this and them that and what they did to me and how that's all you're seeing when you see all that stuff is just ego, 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 ego. And ego is never going to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, I apologize, thank you. Ego can't come up with those words when ego is going, they did this, they did that. That's, but that's spiritual evolution too, okay? That truly is. But sometimes strength is silence. Sometimes strength is coming clean, even if you don't know what you're coming clean for, and you may consciously not know what you're coming clean for, and I think that's really, really beautiful. Shannon, I hear you 1,000%. I didn't have that experience, but people I love have. And so, what I'm sharing with you tonight, okay, is really tough shit, okay? But I also feel like it's almost my responsibility because this is the next level. This is, let's stop talking about being spiritual practitioners and let's show each other what that actually looks like in practice. And what that actually looks like in practice is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And being accountable. That's right. As Colin said, we're leveling up. And by the way, when you're leveling up, people are going to show up to give you opportunities to practice this. They're going to give you opportunities to practice this. And you know what happens when they give you opportunities to practice it? You know what you say? Thank you. You don't say, what a jerk, or poor me, or, well, that's just terrible, or that shouldn't happen. All you say is, thank you for being a good teacher. You're giving me a chance to practice. And if I practice, then I don't have to keep doing this with you. You know what I mean? If I practice, I come clean and I move on. I don't know what happens to you. If you stay in ego, and if you stay angry, and if you stay bitter, and if you stay nasty, I don't know what happens to you. I wish you well. I see the divine in you, wish you well. But what I know is, if I account with sincerity, if I say I'm sorry for the things I know and the things I don't know, I am clean, and I am no longer held down by whatever those circumstances are. And here's, I know, this is like serious church tonight. This is no flippin' joke, you guys. I mean, seriously. In some ways, what we're doing tonight might be some of the biggest work that we've done. Maybe. It might be. Okay. There's a couple of things I want to read to you. Is it okay if I read to you a little bit? And I've got books and things and pages that I dog-eared. So if you're open to listening for a little bit, I would really like to read to you a little bit. And by the way, if this is too much for you right now, I won't take it personally. If you feel like you got to sign off or look at this some other time, I mean, this could be too close to home. You know what I mean? So if this is happening for you right now, and if I'm triggering anything for you, I don't want you to feel obligated, like you have to stay on, because I won't take it personally. I know this is hard. And the main thing I want to tell you is, it's not like I've mastered it. Like I said, I was even having an opportunity last night to say, in a very confusing circumstance, I'm sorry, and please forgive me, and I love you, and thank you. And by the way, in my experience with it last night, none of that was returned to me. It's okay, because it doesn't fucking matter. What matters is, in my heart, it was as real as the day is long. And so it being real for me means it doesn't have to be real for anybody else. That's not my responsibility. And so I think part of what happens to us is we confuse that line between what is my part and what is your part. It's 50-50. It's this line. So as long as I come all the way to this line, that's where my responsibility ends. What happens from there through the rest of the process, it has nothing to do with me and should not ever concern me. Because I'm only accountable to this line, if that makes sense. If you do this work, for some of you, I'm not going to say it's going to do it for all of you. For some of you, this is going to result in probably the most dramatic healing and transformation you've ever experienced. But we're talking about icky, sticky, shamanic, deep, mysterious, indescribable, ephemeral, spiritual energy work. I mean, beyond anything that I think we've talked about before. This does not, let me be clear, this does not ever have to happen in person. Okay? In my circumstance, it couldn't happen in person because the person I was trying to apologize to energetically last night is blocked me. So I can't say it to her, right? And sometimes people do that on purpose. It's almost like they don't want to give you the opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like that gets blocked, and so all that matters is what you do up to here, and then what someone does out there is not your responsibility. Your karma is here to here. Their karma is here to here. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's the beautiful part of it. So, like, Colin says, I probably need to do this with my brother. You know what I mean? I did this with my mom. She's still alive. I got to hear. I don't know what this looks like. That's okay. That's okay. That's her work to do. And it's really strange. I mean, let's talk about parents, right? My mom is a much younger soul than I am. So at this point in her life, I'm parenting her. And I know a lot of you understand that. And so I feel like a parent when I do this work with her, because it's almost like, okay, you. I'm doing my part. If you can't do your part, that's on you. But I'm doing my part. Does that make sense? Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes when I have done this work in the past, the reality is you probably should say the Ho'oponopono prayer every flipping morning, because guess what? Every day you say something that impacts someone else and that is worthy of an apology. Now, we talked in Cosmic Comfort about how not everything is to be forgiven. Okay? So let me tease out that nuance for a second. Are you ready? I know. I'm laying a lot on you guys tonight, but you know what? You're flipping ready for it. And like I said, if you're not, and this is too much for you, I totally understand that. Let me say this part to you too. You should apologize, I think, on a daily basis through the Ho'oponopono prayer, because you are constantly imprinting on someone. You know, I have like not a lot of filter sometimes. So it's easy for me to say something that can offend somebody or upset somebody. Sometimes I'm just blunt. I'm a double fire sign. I don't have a lot of like, I don't often think before I speak. I'm getting better as I get older, so it doesn't happen very often, but I can still hurt someone with my words, right? If you're a Scorpio or fire sign, like you have that ability. So the Ho'oponopono prayer can be said every day, just in general. Literally, every morning. I am so sorry to anyone and to everyone, to any sentient creature that I have hurt, that I have imprinted on with my words or my actions or my deeds. If you do that every morning, that is keeping your karma clear. I have had times where I have yelled at my kids. I mean, let's just be really honest, where I have raised my voice. I'm not a yeller. It takes a lot to get me to raise my voice, but I sure have before. And when I have, I can count them on one hand. But when I have turned to my kids and literally in the moment said, I am sorry. That is not the best version of me that you just saw. And I want to apologize for that. And I hope you can forgive me. And I love you. And I want to thank you. And what you do when you do apologize, when you do show up this way, when you do create this energetic stream, is you set such a beautiful example. Because my kids have learned that they're also going to yell. And they're going to say a bad word sometimes. And they're going to say something to me that hurts my feelings. My son did it last week. And I just looked at him and my eyes welled up, you know, because, it scared him because he had never seen himself hurting me before. But he just said something in his Aries way. And he literally just looked at me and he saw my reaction and he said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And that's because we're teaching each other, me and my kids even, about how to be in sacred relationship with each other. And that doesn't mean that he's not going to make mistakes. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make mistakes. And so I don't want to create this fake relationship with my kids where they think I don't yell and I think they don't yell and they think I don't say fuck and I think they don't say fuck. Like, I don't want to have that weird fake relationship. So what I tell my kids is, let's show up as our full selves. And if I hurt you, I want you to tell me that you're sorry. And if you hurt me, you know, if I hurt you, I'm going to tell you that I'm sorry. And if you hurt me, I want you to tell me that you're sorry. And I will always accept your apology. And I want you to always accept my apology if you can. And that is beautiful relationship. Is it easy? I'm sorry. It's not. I mean, if you want something easier, I don't know that you're going to have something real. And that's why when I see people doing this to each other without taking a step back and creating space for compassion and saying, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I hope you can forgive me. And thank you. And I love you. But I'm telling you, this is advanced soul stuff. And don't expect it from people. Because there are some people who are never going to give it to you. Most of the people in my life are never going to give me what I just said to you. And if I walked around expecting it, I would be a hugely disappointed human being. Does that make sense to you? You honestly should not expect this from anybody. So I'm caveating a lot of these things because first of all, I want you to know I'm going through this shit myself, and it happens to me almost every day. And sometimes it happens to me publicly, sometimes it happens to me privately, and who cares? Because it's all the same shit. It's all me being given an opportunity to say, I'm sorry, and for the universe to ask, is she learning? And then the universe can judge, yes, she is learning, so now we can help her evolve on her soul path and not experience that again, or no, she's not learning, and so we're going to have to start yelling. We're going to have to start giving her tougher signals. We're going to have to start bringing other things into her life. And that's where I don't want to put the universe in that position. Does that make sense? Okay. I love you guys. You're like, yes, I'm ready. This is the real deal. Okay, so let me go through my notes. One of your goals in life, in my opinion, okay, is that you should try, this is a quote, okay, you should try not to create unnecessary infringements on other sentient beings. This is a shamanic perspective, okay? I walk very lightly on this planet, or at least I try, because one of my goals is not to create unnecessary infringements on sentient beings. And what that means is I am not here to cause pain, seen or unseen, to other sentient creatures. And if I do that in any way, even as a reaction to their cruelty, I am responsible for that imprint. And there will be consequences for it. Does that make sense? Like what I just said, does that make sense? So even if I react to someone based on something that they do to me, it doesn't excuse me, because now I have created an infringement upon a sentient being, and I am accountable for that, and there will be consequences for that. So I just want to make sure that that makes sense. Okay. You can create infringements on sentient beings consciously, and you can do it subconsciously. It can happen in this lifetime, or it can happen in previous lifetimes. Let me be clear, because there was a comment that not all infringements are bad. Let me be clear, I'm talking about negative infringements, okay? Your job is not to create unnecessary negative infringements on sentient beings. And even if you do that in the process of what you think is retribution, you are responsible for those negative infringements upon sentient beings. Okay. Here's the, you want to hear the beautiful flip side? Are you ready? That was kind of a negative thing. Let me tell you like the positive side. Here's the upside, because I'm reading quotes to you, so I have to look at my notes. Every improvement in you, this is really, really important. Every improvement in you improves others. And this is based on Hermetic law, right? These are the Hermetic principles that I taught you just a couple of months ago, right? As within, so without. As above, so below. So every act that you take to improve yourself improves the lives of everyone around you. Just like every negative infringement that you create actually reduces your own level of peace, because you are, in many ways, you're not hurting anyone but yourself, because I'm you and you're me. So anything you do to harm me, anything you do to harm anyone else, any other sentient creature, is really just an act of war upon yourself. That is where this gets really complicated, okay? The other really interesting thing, by the way, there's the rune for this is Uruz. If you work with runes, I'm going to start teaching you runes in October. The rune for this is Uruz. It's a concept that what we do impacts everything else. It's chaos theory, right? So it is the part and the whole. And so if you want to know what kind of like the rune correspondence, if you wanted to integrate runes into the practice of doing this healing, it would be Uruz. The other thing I want to say about is all of this is when you constantly relive something. Have you experienced this with people where they can't let go, right? So they keep reliving a moment over and over and over again. They've been divorced for 10 years, but they keep talking and talking and talking and talking about what, he cheated on me, she cheated on me. And it's almost like 10 years later, really? I mean, we're still talking about this. Do you have people like this? Yes, Cindy, let me come back to that. When people can't let go, what they don't realize is every time they recreate that imprint, they are actually activating all the energy of that original experience again in their own energy field. And that's how disease happens, okay? So this is why I really want to break you of this habit. But I feel so bad for people because they get stuck in the past. Like, they got fired from a job 5 years ago, and they're like, I got fired from a job. And you're just thinking, like, I've heard this story. Like, I feel for you, but get another job, And it's like, so they're constantly recreating that wound. Here's an even scarier example of it, okay? And this is from my own life. Have you seen this? When parents, okay, sometimes parents will do this with their children. So I have a friend whose daughter had a learning disorder when she was very young, okay? She's now a beautiful grown woman, living a very healthy, productive life, has really moved past many of the challenges. When I talk to that parent, almost all the time, she goes back to saying about her daughter when she was 5 and how she was diagnosed with this learning disability. And it's almost impossible for her to talk about her daughter as an adult, even though we're not talking 25 years later, okay? And I haven't, because I'm not really in a spiritual teaching relationship with her, I haven't really talked to her about this, but we're talking about 20 times, 30 times, 50 times she's told me about the origin of her daughter's learning disorder and how it impacted her when she was young, even though, and so I don't think what she realizes is that she is constantly reopening that door. And what it prevents is her daughter's ability to become something other than the child with a learning disorder. And I think it is a challenge in their relationship. So when she comes to me later and says, oh, I'm struggling with my daughter, or we're not getting along, do you know what I mean? It puts me in this interesting position because I'm not in that relationship to her, so I try to listen with compassion, but I also realize that that is a negative infringement upon a sentient being. That is not allowing that woman to be free, because here's the reality. It is really possible that learning disorder doesn't even exist for her anymore. In my world, it's absolutely possible that she is no longer available to that learning disorder experience, that is entirely something that's absent from her emotional and physical field, because we regenerate completely, even our brain cells, every 7 years. I believe she's probably completely free of it. I've never seen any sign of it in my interactions with her. So that's where the phrase, stop opening the door, stop beating the dead horse, like that's where all of those phrases come from, because intuitively we know. But somehow when a parent does it, it's almost like they get stuck on the record. You know, did you ever have records? I'm old, but remember like actually playing a record and if it gets stuck, it would skip? It's almost like people get stuck. You know, they have a frame on people. She's got a learning disorder. He's not a nice person. She is abusive. You know what I mean? And then people can't ever get free. And so to Cindy Colemiller's question about, you know, what is a negative infringement? A negative infringement is you creating an imprint on someone else that then impacts their own energetic experience in a negative way. And you can do that through, because karma means thoughts, actions, and deeds, you can do that through thought, action, and deed. And in my opinion, living a good life means you try to minimize the number of negative infringements. And you can actually start to take this wisdom and teach people. You know what I mean? You can say things to people like, look, I think you're creating a negative infringement, and, you know, from a shamanic perspective, part of your goal should be to live with a light footprint. So how actually, instead of creating a negative infringement to harm another person, where in you can you find the compassion that's needed in order to forgive and let go? That could be a really interesting question for someone who seems to be stuck and unable to make that shift, if that makes sense. Well, it's true. You know, Jennifer says, people seem to be stuck on me being a bitch, but I don't feel like I ever was, so I don't know where that came from. And it's sort of like, and then how much of other people's perceptions of you are you responsible for? Because so many of people's perceptions for you are projections. And so it's sort of like, because we're all mirrors to each other, a lot of times people's perceptions of you are not accurate reflections of you and your identity. So that's something for you to consider too. I think it's really important. And it happens too a lot of times when parents live vicariously through their children, right? Like, you know, my mom had her kids relatively young. She didn't achieve a lot of the things that she wanted in her life, and so I think a lot of her life was spent kind of hoping that we would go on to do the things that she wanted to do. That's unfair too, because that's an infringement upon my freedom in a way as a soul to be able to move forward and live into my soul path, because she has her own soul path to live. And if she doesn't, that's not my responsibility, but she can't infringe upon my freedom to live out my soul path either, if that makes sense. Okay. So, by the way, my friend Robin Sandomierski, if some of you know her, she did Resonant Graffiti a few years ago with Kelly Clark. And one of the things that she talks about in her work that I have huge respect for, she talks about the concept of the invisible box. And she said, have you noticed that when you get stuck in a thought pattern, that really what's happening is it's not the thought pattern that's tripping you up, it's your filter. It's the box that you're thinking inside. So if you have a lens on someone, that probably has something to do with your box. Your box could be your negative outlook on the future. Your box could be your anxiety. Your box could be your anger. And then whoever you look at, you're going to look at through that lens. Unless you shatter that box of perception, it doesn't matter what's in front of you, because that box is the filter through which you see everything. So if your box is anger, if your box is anxiety, if your box is an unwillingness to forgive, and you're just walking around being a jerk to everybody, what if your box was compassion? It's like, for example, in recent experiences in my life where I've, I'm on the receiving end of some unkindness, one of the things I can do is say, how would that look through a box of compassion? Because when people are unkind, they're usually really hurting. So if I could look through a box of compassion, I'm not going to take it personally, and I actually will be able to hold space for it rather than react to it. What would happen if I looked at it through a box of love? What would happen if I looked at it through the box of, divine healing? What would happen if I looked at it through the box of forgiveness? What would happen if I looked at it through the box of appreciation? Like, oh, thank you for being a teacher. I'm just saying, and by the way, I'm not saying any of this is easy because it's hard. And in the moment, all the ego wants to do is react. Me too. In the moment, the ego is just like, screw it. But I love the word grace that's coming up from Sky and from Barbara. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're on this path, I think you're being called to grace. And so I don't think that you get the same hall pass that other people get to be able to look through everything with a filter of anger, or look at everything through a filter of resentment, or look at everything through a filter of blame, because that doesn't create healing. All that does is create a stagnant loop for the energy itself to continue spinning. And then it expands and it creates its own energetic field, and then it starts to manifest. So the original person who is lashing out gets sick, and then so does everybody else in that original energy field, because it's all one energy and everybody gets affected by it simultaneously. Woo. Okay. Now, I mentioned Newtonian physics, law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What else did I want to tell you? There's a lot. I wanted to teach you about samskara tonight, which is actually this idea of accountability, about your imprinting. But I think the main thing that I wanted to say to you is exactly what I said to you about forgiveness. I don't think I need to go too far into Sanskrit to get the point across to you. Okay, I'm going to read to you a little bit. Are you ready? The actual bundling part is only going to take about 15 minutes, and we're going to be together until 6:30 Pacific time. So just to give you a time boundary so that you understand. Teresa, is that okay? She says it's making her yawn. Hopefully I'm not boring you to death. Nicole says, what is not forgivable? Nicole, I want to wrap my arms around you for asking that question, because the reality is I don't know. I had an ayahuasca journey once. I've done it multiple times now. I had one ayahuasca journey where, and when I tell you what I experienced in journey, I want you to just try it on and see how it feels, because again, I don't know all the answers. In fact, the deeper I go into my own work, the less I feel really sure that I know. But I will tell you, my teachers say the same thing. And my teacher this week, who's one of the smartest women I know, said, I don't know anything. I mean, I asked her something and she's like, I don't know. So anyway, I just want to remind you that some of the most profoundly wise people say they don't know anything, and some of the most foolish people call other people idiots. Okay. I want to talk about death for a minute. Can we talk about it? This is a book on shamanism and ayahuasca. It's going to talk about ayahuasca, but I want you to read between the lines, because it's not just about ayahuasca. Okay? Okay. This is written by a shaman, by the way, Don Jose Campos, and this is a book called The Shaman and Ayahuasca. So if you're interested in this book, I really love it. I love the way he writes. He's very humble, as most shaman are, and so I just want to share this with you. So he says, such is life, and the definition of death doesn't really exist. Okay? It's just simply a step. That's what ayahuasca makes me understand every time I drink it. Live, die, my problems die, and when they die, it makes me live. My problems die, and I live. That's my way of seeing it. I'm going to tell you one of the experiences I've had, and it's called The Shaman and Ayahuasca by Don Jose Campos. Once when I drank ayahuasca, she very gently explained to me, she told me, look, I give to you, but I take away. So I insisted, what do you give to me, and what do you take away? She said, I take away defects, and I give you responsibilities. I love this book so much. I take away defects, and I give you responsibilities. I take and I give. So think about that. Meditate on it. I take away defects, and I give you responsibilities. From there, I understood that it's the same as I live and I die. I live and I die. And that's the way I see it. Consciousness, however, never dies. It's always there. It's always there. That's what I see with ayahuasca. I feel that ayahuasca takes away the masks we have, and it shows you who you are. And so from that experience, I understood more about how ayahuasca is a holy plant. It is a privilege to partake of ayahuasca. I would have loved for my mother to have taken it, but too bad she died. As her son, I've had the opportunity to drink it. I've got the ayahuasca spirit. This is it. You're healing yourself, but you're also healing your mother. You're healing yourself, but you're also healing your sons. You're healing yourself here in the present, but you're also healing yourself in the past. Ayahuasca prepares us across times, the past, the present, and the future. To me, the present is to be here now and feeling it fully. And so I say, thank you, Mother, that you have granted me to be a full man, a complete man, so I could experience and feel all of this and play with the worlds, experiment with the worlds. So are there bad experiences ultimately? This goes to the question earlier, right? You ready for this? Are there bad experiences ultimately? This is how I see it. In these practices, apparently, one can be going through a bad experience, but in reality, you can't say that it's bad or evil. It's good that you go through it, because then you realize where the problem is within you. And so I say, just submit, just submit. This is the last piece I'll read to you. And I love it because this author says the same line over and over. I'm going to tell you about a couple of experiences I had. There was a gentleman who was 60 years old, and after many years of therapy, he continued to feel estranged from his own life, in a sense alienated from his own body, and so he came to drink ayahuasca with me. I prepared a special brew that included some toei leaves. Toei is datura. So what happened was this gentleman entered into a strange and frightening experience. He thought that he was in labor giving birth. He was screaming and screaming. I told my assistants to take care of him. With time, he'll calm down. And the next day when people shared their experiences, he was a bit embarrassed when he told his story. He said he thought he was giving birth because he was experiencing labor pains. So a few days went by, and all of a sudden his journey came back to him in the same images and sensations, but not as intense as what he had experienced in the ceremony. He became very, very scared and said, am I going crazy? Am I going to be this way the rest of my life? So he came to me and I cleansed him and he settled down. My friend very smartly said to him, why don't you ask your mother how she brought you into the world? The man said, I think it was a normal birth. So he asked his mother and she told him, you know what, go to the hospital. And so he went to the hospital and began to ask questions. Can you tell me where my records are, the records of my birth? Yes, okay, a lady said, I have it. And here is what he found out. His mother had so much pain during childbirth. This is going to make me cry. His mother had so much pain during childbirth that they gave her an injection to calm her down. It was a medicine that contained the active ingredient scopolamina, which is made from datura. Because they had given it to his mother to calm her pain, the man entered the world with practically no pain at all. But all the pain that his mother felt, he took it in and brought it with him. That was why he was uncomfortable with his life. And years of psychologists and psychiatry could not address this. What I believe really happened here is that during the ceremony, when I gave him the toei leaves, which is made from datura, it triggered the physical and the energetic memory of what had happened at his birth, and he began to release. He released all of that. He was healed from all of that. He said to me, thank you, I'm finally able to let go. Yes, I said, but remember, it's thanks to the plants and not to me. keep that in mind. The medicine scopolamina used to be administered with morphine as a painkiller during childbirth, but because it was implicated in the high rise of infant mortality, it was discontinued. But what's interesting here is how the Toei made him relive the experience of his birth and of his mother giving birth to him. He said to me, "Thank you, I feel free from this." But no, it was time for him to thank his mother. If we had more time, I would just keep reading, because that book has really shaped a lot of my thinking about karmic releasing and how complex it can be. But I would just really, if you're interested in that, honestly, it's not really a book about ayahuasca. It's a book about a beautiful shaman who tells you his stories and will make you cry. But imagine that. And so I'm going to start to do the actual work of tonight now. But what I want you to imagine for a minute is this. How many of us spend our lives in therapy, right? And we're trying to understand what is not understandable. So we go to these very sweet, very well-trained, very competent Western psychologists to try to understand something that maybe happened to your mother before she died, or that happened to your grandmother before she died that you never met, or happened 800 years ago to one of your great-great-great-grandparents that's living in your bones. And so it looks like you just spontaneously developed some bone issue or some blood issue or some intestinal issue. But so how is we expect people who have very mortal tools to be able to, what he says, untie knots. But untying knots is a spiritual problem. It's not a psychological problem. And that's where I think our country has sort of fallen apart in a sense. What we do when people come to us and they've got big knots, we just put them on antidepressants. We're like, okay, well, I don't know how to untie that knot, but I can make you not care that you have a knot. So it's like, okay, here's your pills. So I think the medicine of tonight is, you may not be able to get the clarity that man had about Toei leaves and Datura and the pain that his mother experienced in childbirth and how that's showing. Like, it's not easy to get to that direct line and get that answer that he got. But I will tell you, if you don't start out on a path to trying to understand it, you never will. And so, when people are in pain, I am compassionate with them to a point. And then at a certain point, what I feel is, you have to step up and decide that you're going to try and untie your knots, and I can't untie them for you. I probably didn't tie them for you. And so if you're not willing to do the work of trying to untie those knots, then I can't be in relationship with you. Do you know what I mean? It's like at a certain point, people have to take responsibility and try to set out on a path to discover. And by asking the questions, that's all you have to do. It's sort of like, it's just asking the question. Because people will come to me and say, okay, well, how do I do it then? How do I untie the knots? Start asking questions. Read the book. The book will lead you to another book, which will lead you to a website, which will lead you to a person, which will lead you to, you know how this goes, right? It's probably how you found me too. I probably was the end result of some, weird rabbit hole that you went down at some other point, right? But I really do believe that we are reaching the limits of what society can do for us. And so that's why we're returning to some of these old ways, because you need to untie your knots. And so that's what we're doing tonight. So I'm getting ready to untie a knot. And I'm super ready. So I have a big old piece of fabric because I don't know how big my bundle's going to get. I have a whole bunch of starry ribbon because I don't know how big my bundle's going to get. But I'm ready to do this work with you. I'm excited to do this work with you. Okay, so I set up some tools for myself. I want you to see what I'm doing. Okay, by the way, you can do this with intention candles if you ever want to do something like what I have here. These are just intention candles. Okay, I'm going to bury mine. My shaman has told me that it is to be buried. It's not to be buried yet. So I am working closely with her on this medicine. So she knows I'm making it tonight with you. and then we'll talk about burial when the time comes. Okay, so I have done 4 candles here. One is for what I am releasing down my line, that I am creating a barrier tonight around certain energies in my line. This is for the light that I'm calling into my line. This is for the alchemy, the transformation that I am creating in my line. And this is for the healing. The green is for the healing that I am calling into my line. So those are my 4 intentions. So I'm going to light my 4 candles. So first, I always release before I call in, okay? And I already opened a circle, but let me just do it one more time. Calling to the north for wisdom from the ancestors. Calling to the east for a new beginning this evening. By the way, when you're doing ancestral karmic work, when I'm doing it, I usually call to the northern direction first. To the east for a new beginning, for me and my line, to the south for courage, and to the west for the emotional safety and protection and comfort to do this work. Okay? So the white is about the light in my line, the dark is about the dark in my line, the gold is about the transmutation and transformation, and the green is about healing. So I am releasing from my line tonight any energies of trauma, any energies of destruction, any energies of, and I'm just feeling into the words. I mean, I'm doing this work with you right now. Any energies of resistance, any energies of anger, any energies of frustration, any energies of resentment. There was a lot of resentment in my line for not being able to do what they wanted to do. And as I release, I'm calling in the divine white light of peace and protection to replace any energies that are being released from the line this evening. I'm calling in my angels, spirit guides, higher self to support me in that process. I'm calling in physical healing from my line because I am prepared to release any disease, any discomfort, physical discomfort, any residual trauma that has been locked in the energetic DNA of my line. So I'm ready to release and to heal all of that. And then with the gold candle, I am asking that all of the low energies in my line, the lowest vibration, ancestors who didn't cross to the light or who didn't find their way to the healing space, I'm asking that all of that be transformed from base metal to gold through the highest alchemical process and for the collective highest good of all beings, because I recognize that as I heal myself, everyone around me is healed too. As I liberate myself, everyone around me is liberated too. As I show compassion to myself, everyone around me feels compassion as well. As I learn to love myself with all my flaws, I create space for other people to love themselves in their deeply flawed space as well. And so it is. So I'm going to set these over here. Okay. Woo! My little desk is real small. By the way, I have a huge honkin' piece of kunzite here because kunzite is the family healer. If you got one of those pieces of blue kunzite or that beautiful kunzite we had a few weeks ago, this is going in spec sale on Friday, but I've been working with it this week. So any kunzite that you have, I'm actually putting a small piece of kunzite in my bundle because it's the #1 stone for releasing and healing family trauma. So I'm going to lay my fabric down with the pretty side facing down because you're going to wrap your bundle in. So I'm laying it down, and I'm going to walk you through all the ingredients that I'm putting into my bundle tonight. So the first thing that I do, kunzite, the piece I'm putting in my bundle, by the way, is that. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is. I know it makes you miss the crafting, huh? It's kind of like sabbatical craft night, except really deeply crazy spiritual crafting. Oh, for sure. So, hey, Kaylee, you may really enjoy this next step. I have Karmic Release perfume. By the way, my team just put this up as an individual listing. So if you missed the set, because a lot of you were like, I missed the set, but can I get the perfume? It's actually in the shop under your class tools section. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw with my oils, okay? Just like this on the fabric. So I'm going to go clockwise from the top left-hand corner. I'm going to draw a complete line across the top of the fabric. What I'm doing is creating a perimeter. So you want a continuous line, corner to corner. And as you do this, focus your energy. You're creating a sacred container for all of the medicine that's about to be bound here. Okay, so that was karmic release. I'm taking Mother Mary perfume, just because Mary is an important part of my process, and she's been a huge, she came to me last night. I literally could feel her in my room. I'm going to anoint with my finger because I don't have a roller ball on this one. I literally felt the presence of Mother Mary last night in the most profound way. So I'm going to draw a heart right in the center with my finger, just the outline of Mother Mary perfume, so that her energy is represented as the center, the heart center. I'm taking Elder Council, and I'm going to draw a cross in the middle. And so the cross represents the 4 cardinal directions. Drawing first from north to south, calling in the ancestors, calling in the guardians of the southern gateway, and then drawing from west to east across the bundle. I'm putting, as I spill, whoops. This is why having a roller is really important. My altar is going to smell really good in about 2 seconds. Let me see. I don't have a. Actually, I'm gonna clean up the oil with my fabric. It's Mother Mary, so the more the better. Then I'm going to take ceremonial tobacco oil, and I'm just going to put a drop. It's an offering, so if you don't have actual tobacco, you should put ceremonial tobacco, which is tobacco absolute perfume. Chalice, we're talking about chalice, actually. I can't tell you why, because it's kind of a surprise. But when I do bring chalice back, it's going to be in a really special way. Okay? Next, what I'm going to do, I have my Karuna ritual powder. And so I'm going to sprinkle that. Karuna is the Sanskrit word for compassion. And so because the primary energy of this particular bundle is compassion, just sprinkling that powder as an offering of compassion. As you do things like this, smell your hands. Yeah, if you have chanupa, that takes the place of ceremonial tobacco, by the way. If you got that when I gifted that a while back, that is, you don't need anything else. If you don't have Mother Mary, you can use spikenard, which is another really nice way of working with Mary energy. This is to give you an alternative. Okay, now the herbs. So juniper, this is a rebirthing bundle, okay? You are allowing some part of yourself to die so that some other part of yourself can be born. That is the process of shamanic rebirth. And it's really funny. In fact, my teacher always says that the whole role of ayahuasca in ceremony is to teach you how to die a little bit before you really die, so that your real death is a good death. Because she says if you practice dying a lot with ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is a death, if you haven't done it, it can be really scary. So if you practice dying a lot, then when you actually really die, you won't be afraid. So I'm just shaving my juniper bundle. Feels really good, actually. Just to sort of, working with herbs, you got to get your hands dirty. There's no pretty, clean way to do this. Juniper is one of the trees of the dead. It's the tree of transformation. You really can't do a proper bundling ceremony for this kind of work without juniper. So this is my offering. That's why we had juniper berry in the shop this morning, that essential oil. So by the way, if you have juniper berry oil, you don't need juniper bundle. Okay, then the rest of the herbs. So I have a pouch here of herbs to connect me with spirit guides. This is an intuitive blend. It has blue lotus, which is very, very important for this work. There's a little bit of the Sahuario with bay and Palo Santo. There's rose in here for compassion. There's lavender for peace. And so I'm putting that whole bundle of herbs into this. Birch would be beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I absolutely agree. The trees are very important. If you're doing more of a druidic type of bundle, then you're going to have to include more of the tree spirits in order to do that. Isn't that funny? Yeah, Linda says she was just doing that to burn some over charcoal. It's interesting. Okay, this is safety, which has Osha root, which is a very important transformation herb. It has angelica, there's white sage, there's everything in here. And so and there's chamomile, which is another herb of death and rebirth. There's a little bit, in this one it looks like a little bit of calendula, which is very appropriate. And so just mixing all of those herbs in. And so right now my bundle's looking like this. Let me see if I can show you without making it spill out. It's just a big mess of herbs right now, okay? But it smells really good. Okay, now the stones. My chip stones are Snowflake Obsidian, which is about balancing light and shadow and creating divine integration. There's carnelian in here, which is for fire. Since I'm not burning this, I wanted to bring in the element of fire in a different way. And then bloodstone, because like I said, some part of my own releasing is around blood medicine. And so that's important for my work. It may not be important for yours. And then the stones that I'm using. This is why I didn't do this kind of ritual with the public, because they would have been like, whoa, I can't keep up. I'm going too fast with too many things. So these are the stones that I'm working with. I'm going to tell you about them one by one. Again, you don't have to, this is my bundle. So you got to choose the things that are aligned with the work that you're doing. That's why I didn't want to create a kit for you. Like, I really want you to collect the things that you need, that need to go in here. And it might include, you know, a branch from a tree in your yard, or sand from the beach where you live, or, you know, a vial of holy water that you collected on your travels. I can't pretend to speak to the tools that you need. Smoky citrine, because I'm releasing limiting beliefs about prosperity. My family were war survivors for many generations, and so I'm releasing all of that. I'm putting this little charoite that I had in my collection. It's shaped like a heart. Charoite is the stone of the war hero. So that is to represent my, oh, actually, no, that was my, this is not charoite. This is stitch type. I'm trying to create a boundary with my ancestors. And so they can work with me in the light, but not in any other form. Fuchsite, which is to physically heal myself and my line. Chrysocolla, which represents the divine feminine, because I'm healing stuff primarily from my female ancestors. Kunzite, which heals the family line. Sodalite, to release any fear that I might be feeling around this work. Sunstone, because that is about me taking up a leadership role in my own life. Smoky quartz, to transmute negative and low vibrations. Amethyst, which is for peace, balance, and harmony. Charoite, which is the stone of the war hero, which is about courage. Hypersthene, because I'm also releasing certain challenges. Good night, by the way, you guys, if anybody has to sign off, love and healing to you. There is a certain amount of mental illness in my line. It sort of ended with my grandmother's generation, but there's a lot of agoraphobia, inability to leave the house, and different kinds of mental challenges I want to release. Black tourmaline, which is to protect me from anything in the line that I'm not able to see. Black kyanite, to clear all of the energies that are no longer serving me or the line. And amazonite, to help me stay centered in truth. And I wish you could see it because it's really pretty now with all the crystals, but if I show it to you, I'm going to spill it. So let me see if I can tilt this down. Do you see? It's really pretty. All the pretty things. Okay. And what else was I going to put in here? Oh. Was that it? Okay. So I'm taking my double terminated wand. Okay, this is when having a double terminated wand comes in handy. And so as above, so below. I want to connect the energy of this bundle with source energy. So I'm calling in blessings of God, Great Spirit. I'm calling in the presence of the Holy Spirit to help create space and light around this bundle so that its contents are safe and protected, to empower the contents, to activate the contents, and to make sure that the energy of this bundle is resonant with the energies of my highest good, my higher self, my spirit guides, all the ancestors who surround me. Okay, and so it is. Now, let me just, and then the sweetgrass bundle. So I'm actually going to put the whole sweetgrass bundle into my medicine bundle. Sweetgrass attracts the sweet spirits. And so because this is a transmuting bundle, let me show you what this looks like. I thought that having the whole sweetgrass bundle would be very lovely. I don't know what you think about that, but it feels really right to me. I'm actually going to tie it up really quick with a piece of sari ribbon, just because I don't want it to fall apart before I'm done. The nice thing about sari ribbon is you can literally usually tear it, pull it, and tear it in different places to make the length that you want. So I'm going to bind this up. And again, just stay mindful as you're doing this, mindful of what you're releasing, your intention for the ceremony. You guys are enjoying this, huh? I know. I miss the crafting too. We'll have to think about how we can reintegrate that, because I do miss it as well. Crafting is such an important part of magic. And when you don't craft, I think, or when you don't make some of your own tools, which is why I really didn't want to prescribe this for you, because I want you to see your own magic in it. I don't want you to just feel like I did this for you. Okay, so I am done kind of bundling up my sweetgrass. May this offering call in the energy of the sweetest spirits to bless this bundle as it returns to source. And I always tie in 3 knots. Amen. Aho. And so it is. The 3rd knot. Okay, so here's my sweetgrass bundle, all bundled up. And so here is what it looks like right now. The contents. Okay. So now I'm going to take my bundle and I'm going to gather up the edges. So here I do traditionally start in the east. So with the eastern side, actually that would be this side, calling in energies of renewal, grateful for the opportunity to reboot my line with this bundle. In the south, I'm calling up energies of courage. In the west, I'm calling in energies of emotional renewal and strength, especially because in the west is where the grandmothers live. And then in the north, calling in additional blessings of the ancestors, calling in the tree people, the stone people who also reside in the north. And this is the final bundle. It's pretty cool, huh? Okay, now, and this next part, you can Martha Stewart this out as much as you want. I'm a little bit of a minimalist, because for me it's not so much how it looks, it's more about, did I do the work? And so, like I said, you can totally zhuzh this up and make it really pretty and do all kinds of things, but it's not necessary. Okay, so what I do is sort of like wrapping a present. So I lay the top of my sari ribbon over my bundle like this, okay? And then I flip it over, and it looks like this. So the blood's happening after. The blood will happen when I bury the bundle, because I'm going to put a drop of blood in the bundle, on the bundle, and I'm going to put a drop of blood in the ground. And that will represent my own death, as well as the death of the energies that are represented in this bundle. Okay, so now I'm turning it like this. And I'm going to flip it like this. Does it help for me to show you like the step-by-step? It's just like wrapping a present. And then I'm going to pull the edges through. Other things that can go in here, writing that you do. because your handwriting is what we call an object link. Object links are things that carry your life force that you can offer in ritual to enhance the energy. Blood is an object link, your handwriting is an object link, your hair is an object link, your fingernails are an object link, your vaginal fluid, including menstrual fluid, is an object link, your urine is an object link, and your saliva is an object link. So, I leave that to you. And you'll know, like most times I'm not called to include an object link. I just was called to blood because I'm aware that energy is what's presenting itself for healing. And so I'm doing something that I call prayer looping. I tie bow after bow after bow, and with each bow I say a different prayer. So I am healing, and in my own healing I heal you. I am loving, and in my own loving I love you. And so I'll show you what the prayer bow looks like. You see all the loops? It's just bow upon bow upon bow, but every time I tie off one of the bows, I do that. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this. This is big magic, by the way. No joke tonight. Okay, so this is my bundle. When the time comes, I will prick my finger. One drop goes onto the bundle, one drop in the ground, and usually when you do blood work like that, interestingly enough, when I have done it, and it's only been a handful of times, I've never bled more than I needed. So if I say I'm going to do 2 drops, I literally will end up pricking myself just enough to create 2 drops of blood, and it heals. Your body shows up to do the work that you ask it to do in this really miraculous, beautiful way. So yeah, you don't have, but again, if the blood freaks you out, I'm just being honest with you about my process, so I needed to tell you that because it's part of the work that I'm doing. Okay, a prayer over the bundle. So it's interesting because we haven't decided that yet, where exactly I'm to bury this. I may have to wait until I actually get to Greece, which probably won't be until 2018. So I may have to wait. We're trying to figure out a proxy for me, someplace that I could bury it here that would actually represent and hold the energy of my line. It just depends, because part of the line is my maternal line, which is not Greece. So that line is U.S. and South American and other lineages. And so there is a way in which I can bury it here, but it will still have the energy of that, of the essence of that. Your guides will tell you when to bury it and where to bury it, unless you're working with a teacher. So like I said, I'm working on this with my own shaman, and so she and I are in conversation about what the how will be. We know what the what is, but what the how will be. Okay. I want to give thanks to all of you, first of all, for witnessing this work tonight. I want to give thanks to the guardian angels and spirit guides and all of the energies that have shown up. I wish you could see, look at the top of these candles, how beautiful it is. Can I show you? I don't know if I can get it over here. It's just really beautiful. The light's not right, but I wish you were here. And so, as a prayer and a blessing to my line, first of all, I give thanks for what has been released tonight. Through generations and centuries and millennia, we release all those energies with grace and with gratitude, and so it is. Oops, I only wanted to blow out the one, so let me relight. Okay, and in place of what we have released, we've called in light and blessings, and so I want to give thanks for the light and the blessings that have been received tonight. And then I want to honor my ancestors for their ability to transmute base metals to gold, and for us to be able to harvest together what is the beauty of our gifts. And so I give thanks for that. And last, I give thanks for the healing that this will create, not only for me and for my daughter, but for her children, and all the way back down, the healing that it will offer in death to my ancestors who may have not crossed to the light because their healing was not complete. And so I want to give thanks for that as well. Amen, aho, and so it is. And I'm going to let the smoke of those candles rise up into that bundle So good. It feels like a gift. It feels like a gift, and not just to me. Well, you know what? I'm really grateful that you guys were present to witness me, because this is pretty heavy stuff, right? Like this is my soul work that I'm doing right in front of you right now. But I'm really grateful that I feel vulnerable enough to do that with you, which is pretty huge. Okay. Guides and guardian angels. I'm actually going to sit a couple of stones on top of this bundle while I bless it. So I'm using Herkimer diamond, Dambarite, and I'm using amber as stones to anchor the energy. The Herkimer diamond is to raise the total vibration of the bundle. The Dambarite is because of what we talked about in GemWise last night. It's one of the most healing stones on the planet. And then the amber is for protection. As these energies go down the line, sometimes they're not met with good reception. And so I'm using those stones to anchor the space. And I will bury the stones with the bundle when the time comes. Great Spirit, Source Energy, God, the one who breathed life into me as I said yes to this soul contract. Thank you for the gift of presence tonight, mindfulness, my ability to move me beyond my own ego, to say to my ancestors, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I am sorry for what I have done and what I have not done. I am sorry for what has been said and has not been said. I am sorry for what could have been and what never was. I am sorry for any way in which I have called energies into this lifetime that no longer serve my line. I take responsibility for my part and I release the rest. And tonight I ask for forgiveness across my line, across decades, across centuries, across generations, across millennia. From here to Sumeria, to Mesopotamia, to our ancient roots in Manoah, and to all the places I know and do not know. It is not my job to know. It is simply my job to show up and to be present, to be accountable, and to receive the blessings that will come in the place of the many challenges, the many struggles, and the deep pain that has plagued my line for too long. Tonight I rise as priestess, as teacher, as student, as practitioner, as mother, as woman, as granddaughter, as great-granddaughter, as great-great-granddaughter, as one who is so tiny and yet so large, as one who is so small and yet so profound. May the work I do tonight heal those around me and release them, heal those in my line and release them, heal those who are to come, the children of my children and their children, and release them from the burdens, the sorrow, and the karma. I release the need to know how this will happen or when it will happen. I simply accept that it will, and I am grateful. And so to the four corners, to the four directions, to the four winds, to all the guardians of all the gateways, to all of my spirit guides, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And amen, aho. And so it is. I went somewhere for a minute there. Thank you for being here tonight. To be present to me for this. It absolutely means the world to me, and I see you. If releasing was easy, we wouldn't have to do it, right? But you know what? I hope what tonight does is inspire you. I hope it encourages you. I hope it helps you to see me kind of in my really open, honest transparency about my own flaws and imperfections, which, by the way, if you're with me for long enough, I mean, you're going to see all the things, right? I don't profess to be perfect, and I don't profess to know everything, but I do profess to be trying. I do profess to be trying to grow and trying to listen and trying to learn and trying to expand and trying to forgive and trying to witness and trying to allow and trying to, and it's like, that's the work that we do. And at the end of the day, truly, I think that's our only obligation, is to try, to keep showing up and to keep trying. And it doesn't matter if anybody sees it, and it doesn't matter if anybody receives it, and it doesn't matter if anybody approves of it. Because again, like I said, can you see it? Like I said, at the end of the day, no one else matters in this equation except for you, because you can't do their work for them and they can't do your work for you. So at the end of the day, if you are at peace, if you know in your heart how you have shown up to this work and you've done it in an authentic and really beautiful way, then I think what other people say or do or experience relative to you almost doesn't matter, because you are accounting for your responsibility. You are taking responsibility for your part. You are asking for forgiveness where that is needed. And ultimately, the most important thing is you are forgiving yourself. And I love you too. I love you too. Okay. Guardians of the gateways, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your presence. We are so thankful. We're thankful for guidance in the West, for that big emotional release that was so needed. We're thankful for guidance in the South around courage and clarity, a little bit of playfulness, not taking it all so seriously. Guidance in the East for new beginnings. Guidance in the North from all the ancestors who I felt my ancestors around me tonight in a bow. And you know what? That's the reward. If you're making them proud because you're fucking showing up and you're doing the work, and you're, even when it's hard and even when nobody's looking, you're showing up and you're doing the work, I think that is your first and only obligation and responsibility at any time. And I felt yours too. I really did. Aho, my sisters, I'm sorry that this went over. I feel bad. It's almost 2 hours. I mean, I know you guys have families and things to be doing, but I really appreciate that you were here with me. In the future, I can imagine doing something like this with all of us in a room, and we're all hugging and kind of sloppy crying on each other and stuff, but this was as intimate and beautiful as it could be. I'm glad you were here. I didn't want to set a time cutoff, because the reality is this just needed to be what it needed to be. I tried to contain it, and the reality is it wasn't going to be contained. So thank you. I really appreciate it. So in honor of all this work, my team put together a little gift for you, just for the next couple of days, because they knew that I was working with Karmic Release and Elder Council tonight. So they did this little dram for you. It's a blend of Karmic Release and Elder Council, and then the big pieces of amber. And so I would ask that you don't share this outside of Sab and Illumina, because we don't have enough. But if you say release in your notes, you don't have. It doesn't matter what you do, in terms of orders over the next couple of days. But if you do order anything and you say release, they're going to send you this duo so that you have an extension of the work that I did tonight, which I think is really sweet. So that's our gift to you. Because I imagine you'll go do this ritual at some point too. And I hope that you do. And I hope that you experience the same profound presence, the same strength, and ultimately the same peace. Because, and I want to say this one more time tonight, because I think this is the biggest medicine. If you ordered today, just email the team, email Magic, and tell them I just ordered, but I want the release, and they know that sabbatical girls get whatever they want, so they'll take care of you. So this session will be archived permanently. You'll have permanent access to it, so it'll be here for you forever. But this is the one main thing I really want to leave you with tonight, because it's the main concept for tonight, okay? And that is stay clean. You can't make other people clean in relationship. And by clean, I mean not sticky. Stay in clean relationship to people. Do your part. Apologize. Be sincere. Even if it's energetic and you never say it to the person, all you have to do is hold that space of compassion and love and forgiveness in your heart. That keeps you clean. What other people do with their words, with their intentions, with their anger, with their sorrow, with their sadness, however destructive it is at the end of the day, that is nothing that you are responsible for. And I know it's hard to look the other way sometimes because you care about people and I care about people, and you don't want to see people do things that don't seem consistent with the caliber of their soul, and yet that's not a road that you can walk for them. You can model something different, you can model something better, and your humility is a beautiful way to do that. And I will tell you, that the longer I do this work, the more humble I am. And like I said, my teacher, who I sort of like, I bow to her, just yesterday, like I said to me, you know what, I feel like I don't know anything. And I fell in love with her all over again, right? The people who say they know everything and are judging everybody, those are the people that that I just send love and compassion to. Yeah, it's true, Claudia. I actually did shed a tear onto my beautiful bundle. And you can't. Object links are easy, right? Take the tear, touch the bundle. Take your saliva, touch the bundle. Like, make those object links are really easy. Yeah, Rain, I hear you. Sticky free is for me. That should be a new hashtag. We should do that in SAB. Sticky free. Unstick. Hashtag unstick. Honestly, who wants to know everything? I mean, I want to know a lot, but I know that I'm not going to know everything until the last breath. And I know in that moment, when I take my last breath here and my first eternal breath after this lifetime, that's when all of the mysteries get revealed. We can't handle it right now. And that's why we don't know yet. I see you, Maria. Teflon, Rebecca Roberts. That's how we do. We are ascending. I don't know if you notice it. I think a lot of you do. Some of you may not. Susanna, we're going to start doing meetups where you guys are, and we can absolutely do a version of this when I come to where you are. Anyway, I sort of lost track of my train of thought, but it'll come back if I need to find it. All right, I love you. I wish you a beautiful evening, everybody, and a beautiful weekend. Enjoy, be well. I know. It's true. It's true. So Rain says she notices we are ascending, we are moving, and we are evolving, and I see it in you, and I know that you see it in me too, and it's really beautiful to witness it in you and to have you witness it in me too. We are growing. And I'm just excited to see where we go. And I honor you truly for showing up to the work of your life, because it's really fucking hard. But you know what? The alternative, you don't want to live in the alternative. Let me just tell you that from experience. You might as well do the work. That may be my best quote of the night. You might as well do the work. The alternative is not ideal. All right, you guys. Truly love from my heart to yours. If I could just wrap my arms around you and hug you, I would. But I'm sending you all of that from where I am. And I will look forward to seeing you guys very soon. Enjoy your weekend.